Mexico is continuing its vaccine program and has started to administer second doses to adults over the age of 60 years. As of Monday, almost 17 million doses have been administered across the country, with 7 million doses from Pfizer and almost 1 million of the Russian Sputnik V vaccine. The problem here is that almost 5.5 million doses have been from Chinese vaccine. And just this week, a senior official from the Chinese government admitted that their shots have a very low effectiveness and should be delivered with more doses or with other shots. And as I told you, just like the doorbell I bought for my home, it was cheap, it had promise, and then it stopped working after a month. But seriously, with that amount of vaccines administered in the country, is it going to be effective in protecting the population from disease? Also, there's been a 3.5 million AstraZeneca vaccines administered in Mexico, and although there has been little debate about its efficacy, it has caused blood clots in a very small amount of patients. You are much more likely to generate a blood clot from birth control, dying of a car accident, or of smoking a cigarette, but the situation has caused at least 20 countries to suspend the use of the vaccine. The rare blood clotting is not just in AstraZeneca, but also in the one-shot Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And this week, the US government recommended a pause in its administration to investigate more. This is not good news for the COVID fight, as there are many people who fear the vaccine that we may not get to herd immunity. For those of you watching who are American, Mexican, or from another part of the world that have been thinking of going to the US to get the vaccine, I've invited 2 people with Mexican citizenship who did this to join us on the program to discuss their experience. Thank you so much, Gabriela Carrenzo and Grisha Reither, for joining us to talk about it. Really appreciate you being on the show. Now, Grisha and Gabriela, you both got the vaccine in Texas, right?
That's
I got
correct.
mine in Florida. Did you have to show proof of citizenship or residency to get vaccinated? How did this work? Gabriela?
No, actually, I used my Mexican passport to identify myself when I put my vaccine on. So
I didn't even have to identify. I just had to show the printout with the QR code, and they scanned that thing, and they're like, go right ahead. They didn't even want to see my ID.
So were you guys nervous about this beforehand, or did you know that this was going to happen? How did you feel when you do? Because you paid some good money to get over to Texas.
I was very scared. I thought I was not going to make it. So.
Well, I had a bunch of people go before me, so I kind of had them try it out first and verify that nothing bad was going to happen. So by the time I got there, I pretty much had pictures, video, instructions, exactly a step-by-step algorithm of what was going to happen. And exactly as I went to a place called Woodforest Stadium, which is in what I call Little Mexico, or some people call it the Woodlands. And basically, it was very organized, very, very well put together. Not a whole lot of wait time, and honestly, it was more than I expected. It was very well done.
And how about for you, Gabriela? Was it pretty organized? How long?
Yes, I have the same experience. I was thrilled about the organization and the service of all the people that was helping as a volunteer. So I was very, very happy, and I didn't expect that.
So it's really interesting because I registered in Florida, and they asked me to show my Florida driver's license, which I do have, and I had to show some kind of proof and all these different things. So they were pretty stern with that. So I wouldn't say the same thing about Florida, but maybe because each state has different regulations and rules, right? There was different policies and procedures, especially you go into the Woodlands. Where did you go, Gabriela?
I went to a little town called Midland. It's literally at the middle of Texas. And what I heard, I don't know if it's true, is that the vaccines were thrown out because the people don't want to get a vaccine. So that is why they are putting the vaccine to everyone, basically.
Yeah, the thing is, once they thaw those vaccines, especially if they're Moderna, which are supposed to be kept at a certain temperature, not as bad as the Pfizer, which are minus 80 degrees Celsius. But the problem is once they thaw them, they can refreeze them. So they either apply them to anybody who comes in, and they'll let you know now. Exactly, ahead of time. So everybody comes in, or they have to throw them out. And so, they're pretty much vaccinating anybody who has a pulse, so long as they don't have to throw them out.
Second shot was fine. Second shot was the same thing.
No, well, not for me. I don't know. Go ahead.
No, for me, it was exactly the same thing, maybe faster. and
Yeah.
easier. So,
Yeah, for me, the second shot was different. It kind of cheapened down because instead of going to a nice stadium with Army personnel, I had to go to a Walmart. And then, they sent me to the dressing rooms to get my shot. So it was not as nice as the first time around, but it still worked very well.
Okay.
I went to a rodeo both times, so it was the same.
The same thing. Now, I have a couple more questions. The first one is, why did you feel like it was necessary to go to the U.S. and not wait here in Mexico for your place in line for the shot? I mean, Grisha, I don't know how much more you'll have to wait, but why did you think this was imminent to do that?
Because Mexico is vaccinating at a rate of 40 to 50,000 persons a day, where they should be vaccinating at 400,000 people a day. They're getting in vaccines at a rate of maybe between 500,000 and 1 million a week, where they should be getting 20 million shots a week. So, and they're vaccinating in Mexico with Chinese, Russian, and all kinds of other vaccines that we don't actually have any confidence because they're not accepted by the World Health Organization, nor do we know that they have high efficacy rates. So if I'm going to have to wait until January of next year, if I'm lucky, to put something into my arm, which possibly could be pure air or just salt water, I'd much rather take the risk and pay for it and go to the US and make sure I get something that works.
I think the same. And also maybe that here in Mexico, the people is waiting more than 21 days between the two shots. So I don't know if the vaccine is effective like 30 days after the first shot, or I don't know. So I don't want to be the experiment here in Mexico. So that's why I went to the United States.
Yeah, and I just want to mention, I mean, I know there's a lot of people or some people that are watching the show today that may not have the means to be able to do that, to go to the United States. And I understand that ticket prices have skyrocketed for flights to Houston and San Antonio directly from Mexico. And so it has become prohibitively expensive for a lot of people. I just wanted to mention that. The last thing, how were the shots for you? Did you feel sick? Did you feel okay? Were there differences between the first and the second? I did hear that women have a more adverse reaction than men. So I'd love to hear both of your thoughts. Grish?
So for in my case, the first time around, I felt basically nothing, just a little bit of pain in the upper arm. Second time around, I had a lot of sweats at night. The first night, second night, I was good, and by the third date, I was as if nothing had happened. But I know my wife, for instance, she had quite a bit of discomfort in the first time around for about 10 days, what they call the Moderna patch, and a lot of itchiness and puffiness. And the second time around, it lasted for about 2 nights, but it wasn't as bad as a lot of people have reported.
Okay, Gabriela?
For me, the first shot, I just experienced pain on my arm. And the second time, it was very difficult for me because the day that I received the shot, I didn't felt anything. I didn't feel anything. And the next day, I got headaches, fever, I feel very sleepy. And that went through 3 days. So it was very, very difficult for me. So maybe, yes, 3 days.
But on the flight prices, and I know you just put them on the screen, we got our flights for about $300 a pop. And even today, if you get them 2 to 3 weeks in advance, they're still between $200 and $300. What's expensive, and you can't get around in Texas without a car, are car rentals.
That is, car rental is very expensive.
Because due to the pandemic, a lot of the car rental companies had to sell their cars to make a living. And so now they're short. And with all these people going into Texas, if you want to rent a car, you're talking about $150 to $200 a day to rent a car. That's where the money goes. And the Galleria.
And you should rent your car previous to your trip.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you go in and you have a drive-through, was
Never
it a
know.
drive-through, by the way, or walk-in?
The first time in the Woodforest Stadium was drive-through. You never left your car. In Walmart, you have to kind of step out of the car.
Okay, Gabriela?
I went to San Antonio and then I took a car to Midland, 5 hours trip. So,
okay, so you really,
yes.
you really made a drive for that.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys so much for sharing your stories with us. Really appreciate it. I'm sure a lot of people are.
Thank you.
Grisha and Gabriela, thanks so much for joining us.